to Smooth Jazzing with Professor Smooth Jazz. In this segment, I'm doing an interview. Want to introduce British multi-award winning singer, actor, and entertainer, Richard Shelton. How you doing, Richard? And would you say hello to the Kansas City audience?
Hi, Kansas City, and thanks for having me along. It's good to be here.
So, Richard,
Yeah.
how did you choose singing as a career? Did you start early, or and the singers, they get all of pop, they get all the publicity, the
Yeah.
girls fall all over the place, and the
Yeah.
musicians they're kind of in the background.
Well, I don't think I chose it. I think it chose me, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
And I remember as a kid, there was a point when I guess I was about 12 years old, something like that. And I remember we had to go and see the head teacher of the school. It was one of those kind of checking in pet talks where they, sort of asked us all, and what do you want to do when you grow up? And I remember saying, I want to be a singer. And he said, really? And I said, no, really, I did. And this is back in the 1960s. Kids didn't really say stuff like that.
Mhm.
But true to my word, that's I can, I can say I did it. I mean, I grew up in a household where my dad was every Friday night we'd be listening to jazz, big band swing, so it was always Count Basie or Ella or, Dave Brubeck or, it was all, I grew up in a household where I was just surrounded by that music. And I grew up just loving it. And yeah, it just seemed like a very natural step to, it's followed me all through my life, really.
Okay. Now you have a new release,
Hmm.
uh, and it's titled "An Englishman in Love in L.A."
That's the one. Yeah, yeah,
So tell me
yeah.
how that came about.
Yeah, it's kind of a neat story. So I was in just before coming to live in LA. So this was about 9 years ago. There's a great jazz club that some of your listeners may know in London called Ronnie Scott's. It's kind of, I mean, it's super famous over there, and the big names of all, really, Ella Fitzgerald has played there. I mean, really fantastic caliber of singers. And I went to see a show, and on the way out, it was really crowded. And I just got talking to the guy standing next to me in the line. And he said, oh, well, what's your name and where do you live? And I said, well, actually, I'm just going to go live in LA. And he said, no way, so am I. And so we reconnected back, a few months later in LA.
Mhm.
And we were at the Hollywood Bowl. Wouldn't you know, we went to see a Tony Bennett concert. And that place takes 17,000 people. And as we were leaving, I heard this voice shouting, Richard, Richard, and I turned around and there's Alex. So we bumped into each other again. And I didn't know this, but he was the BBC Young Composer of the Year a few years ago. And he said, oh, I want to write a song for your album. What's it about? And I said, well, it's about new beginnings. It's about an Englishman who finds himself in Los Angeles. And the reference to LA, in Love in LA, it's kind of like a reference to the Frank Sinatra, Quincy Jones album when he sang LA is my lady. So it's kind of being in love with fresh opportunities, and yeah, that's the background to it. That's how it all came about.
Ah, okay. So you talk about Frank Sinatra. Is
Yeah.
that an album or in the background there, Frank? There?
Yeah, I have a feeling there's big Frank Sinatra's everywhere in here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I have a big relationship with Frank, an acting relationship with Frank
Oh,
Sinatra.
okay. Yeah, and it also says so you actor, you
Hmm,
had done a little acting, some acting or something too.
that's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I was on a TV show over in the UK, but the biggest, honestly, the biggest acting gig I've ever done was I played Frank Sinatra. I know
Oh,
it's weird because I'm British, as you can hear, but I have this really uncanny connection with him. For example, we're exactly the same dimensions. I'm the same height, the same shape.
mhm.
And actually, his tuxedo walked into my life. It's a true story. And I was wearing it on television in Britain. And a fellow guest on the TV show was Roger Moore. We were talking before we came
Oh,
live,
yeah, yeah.
James Bond. And he said, well, who are you and what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm here because I'm promoting a show about Frank Sinatra. And this is his tuxedo. And he said, open the jacket pocket. So I did, and there's a little sign, a little, made by, embroidered inside, Cyril Castle. He said, oh yeah, that's Frank's. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, Frank Sinatra called me up and he said, Roger, where'd you get your tuxedo made? I want one. And he said, I sent him to Cyril Castle. So that's
okay.
definitely his tuxedo. But I played him in 2 dramas, Rat Pack Confidential and Sinatra Raw. So yeah, I'm heavily influenced by the late, great Frank Sinatra.
Okay. Now, we were talking about Frank Sinatra, and I was looking up what type of genre, because it's kind of swing, big band. Now, today they kind of classify it as pop, but it also could be, under the jazz also.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, that? I mean, I guess that because I played him as an actor in a drama, I needed this record to be clear blue water, if you know what I mean, between me and Frank Sinatra. So the genre of this album is, I guess it's kind of like something you might expect to hear from possibly Harry Connick Jr. or Tony Bennett, Sinatra, that kind of vibe. The whole feel of it is jazz, and there's some beautiful laid back, really, sexy ballads. We've taken a couple of pop songs and put them in these, just the rhythm section, just making them super laid back. But there's also, big band and swing on there as well. So yeah, I guess easy listening is a good way. It's a good term of describing it.
Yeah, and something that when I was looking up some information on that genre, it said, and I kind of remember the name of your selection I played on the radio, and it was talking about some of the for Sinatra song about parties, money, and champagne and love affairs.
Oh yeah, yeah. Isn't that great? So evocative. I love that.
But I look at it as jazz with vocals. That's
Yeah.
kind of the way. And I know there were some vocalists who were complimenting. He said, "Well, you play vocals on your radio show." I said, "Oh yeah, but it's because of the influence I had. I was born in '54, so I grew up with doo wop and R&B and funk. I mean, man, everything. So
yeah.
So
I mean,
to me,
I think in that genre, for me, the only singer who could meet someone like Frank Sinatra, he was such a powerful presence and such an incredible, distinctive voice. For me, the only singer he collaborated with that really met him face to face was Ella Fitzgerald. And I mean, there's a TV special they did together, and it's just the most beautiful. Oh, it's staggering to see those two talents together from that era, And I had in a different life altogether when I was younger. In the 1980s, I met Ella Fitzgerald. She was in concert with Oscar Peterson in London. And I was lucky enough to get backstage, and I knew the producer, and I got to hold her hand for a while. Oh my God, what talent. I mean, I guess talent that the world will never see again. Do you know what I mean? So distinctive. And yeah, I guess that I guess that those two performers are really my inspiration. Yeah, wonderful.
And so my growing up, they always had Frank Sinatra on television, and it just wasn't the acting part. He sang, so that's why I remember Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
Mostly not by listening to it on the radio, because I was so much younger.
Yes.
By the time I grew, by the time I'm at age where I can remember what I was listening to on the radio.
Yeah. Fantastic.
And so that club scene, I always remember. Well, I still watch Peter Gunn. I remember Peter Gunn when I was younger.
Yeah.
And so when I was playing your music on my show, and I told him, I said, I still watch Peter Gunn and Edie, she plays at that club called Mothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they always have this nice jazz band, and she's singing.
Fantastic. There's talking to Peter Gunn. I don't know if you heard Sarah Vaughan sing the theme
Oh
tune.
yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool, so good. Yeah,
But most
great.
of mine is from documentaries and things like that because I was so much younger. I don't remember, when I was. And now you have more, where you see it on television where you got so many different stations.
Yeah,
We only had what, three stations a long time ago.
yeah, I remember those days myself. I think life was easier then, you know, you had less choice. Everything was easier.
Oh yeah, and then you're not flipping. You flip through the stations. There wasn't too many stations.
Oh, it's too much.
You kind of already knew what was on television.
Exactly. I mean, now you can watch a show. I find like you can watch a show on television, and before you know it, it's like 1 o'clock in the morning because
Oh yeah.
you just go on and on and on. Anyway.
Well, that's what a lot of the things that I want to see. Why they have this on the regular time? And you know, putting programming shows and stuff. So I'm up late. So I still had the TV on, and so sometimes, well, I gotta finish this up. I
Yeah,
can't. I can't stop watching this. But they should have had this on earlier.
yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So have you ever did a live radio?
Oh yeah. Actually, for this record, I was back in London, I guess 2 weeks ago, and there's a radio station called BBC Radio 3 where they promote. It's kind of classical music, but it's jazz as well. Once a month, they choose a record to promote. And we did a live gig on radio, which is singing live on the radio is actually harder than you might imagine because when you've got a live room of people, you have acoustics and you play with the audience a bit. But on a TV set, it's different again because you're singing to people. But on the radio, there's no one there. You're just in the studio with a microphone, and it's going out to a big audience. But it went really well. It went super well. So yeah, I like it. I like singing live on the radio. Yeah.
And this selection, it was during the month of April when we celebrate jazz history. So yeah, it really helped enhance my show because that's what I was talking about. And there was this song that I played that I do remember from my dad, and it was Eddie Jefferson. They said he was the godfather of the vocalies or something like that. But it was a song about the story of Birdland.
Oh yes.
And so I just remember I had to be kindergarten or younger.
Yeah.
Because where we lived, and my dad would try to sing it, and I'd laugh. But when I listened to the song, I said, that was a lot of history because I didn't realize Birdland was a club.
Yeah.
And all these jazz musicians would meet there. And Eddie had said he had been to Paris, but he was so glad to be back home in New York. And when he first got there, he said Charlie was there and he was Bird. And but it was a song about saxophonist James Moody. Yeah, that's what it was about. But he mentioned some of the other artists that were there, and they would all meet, and people were waiting on them to get there, and they'd start playing. Yeah. It didn't seem like they brought music that they could sit there and read. It was
incredible. There's a good version of Birdland by the Manhattan Transfer. I don't know if you ever.
I remember that.
Yeah, really nice kicking version. You can only imagine being around in those days in those clubs. It must be fantastic, just fantastic.
Yeah. So how do you like LA?
Well, I think it takes a while to get used to LA, especially if you live in a city like London. I think one of the biggest things that it's hard to get your head around is that there's no center to LA. So in other words, if you want to get from A to B to C, you have to drive everywhere. So there's no in that regard, it's kind of hard to get your head around because where I'm from, I'm used to walking everywhere. I walk to the store or I just walk to the shops, whatever it is. Here you have to drive everywhere and you're going kind of miles and miles. That takes a bit of getting used to. But no, I've made some good friends here, and there's 3 main jazz clubs in town. There's Vitello's, Catalina's, which is great. There's Vibrato, but there's also the Baked Potato, which is a small jazz club in town. Yeah, and I kind of know the folks now, so I'm part of the groove, which feels nice, feels good.
So do you perform at any of the? Are you doing any performances at clubs, or are you just?
Yeah. I've got that. So this album, An Englishman in LA, this releases on Thursday, and we're actually presenting it at
Mhm.
Vitello's Jazz in Studio City.
Mhm.
I know this is, some people will be listening. You can't see me, but I'm doing this because it's over the hill where I live in LA. It's just
Oh,
over
okay.
there. But we're doing that on Thursday night. So if anybody's in LA on Thursday night, they want to come along, it'd be great to see you. But yeah, I work in all the clubs. So,
Oh, okay.
but this coming Thursday, this is the launch, which is kind of exciting. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So you have a band, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful band. So 3 young kids. Well, actually, we've got 4. We've got a quartet this time. So we've got the guy who wrote Lost and Found, and is a bass player called Alex Frank.
Mhm.
He arranges for Jeff Goldblum for his band, and he also arranges some stuff for Michael Bublé. He's a great musician.
Mhm.
Well, Jordan Siegel on piano and a drummer called Ryan Shaw. So three young kids in LA. So
Mhm.
yeah, they're a tremendous band. Yeah.
Well, glad to see that young talent, because if you want the genre or any music to continue, you have to have young people.
You do. It makes a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's exciting to see the young kids doing what they bring such energy. I mean, look, you've got the older established players, and they're
Yeah.
always phenomenal to see. But it's
Mhm.
great to see the young musicians coming through. It's
Mhm.
important.
Yeah, and it's I always like to promote them on my show, but if you don't, there's other things that could be other things they could be playing. Other
Yeah,
music that you go to, and you have to uh, give them support.
yeah, you do.
So yeah,
Yeah, yeah. That's great.
so so now is this your first album
No.
in the states here in the
Oh
states?
yeah, it is my first album in the States. Yeah.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yeah,
So
that
what
makes.
is? I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's my first album in the States, so that makes it very special, because
Mhm.
for a British person coming to America and recording over here, it's exciting. I guess it's the same for American artists going across to the UK.
Mhm.
I know some American musicians, and they say, "Oh, it's mind blowing to be in London and record," but that's how we feel about coming across here. It's very special. So I'm excited for it.
So what other albums have you done, just in case someone wants to hear some of your previous?
Oh, I did a big or big band swing orchestra album
Mhm.
called Top Cat in
Mhm.
London, Abbey Road.
Mhm.
Um, and before that, many years ago, I did an album. I did an album called Retro Spectrum, and it was 80s songs in jazz. But I
Mhm.
wouldn't bother looking it up. It was the first thing I ever did, and let's just say it was a work in progress.
Uh,
We'll leave it there.
well, what else do you would like to accomplish, in your singing career? Is there any?
Well, that's a great question, and actually, what I'm working on when this album is out, I did this play, this drama piece about Frank Sinatra, and it looks at when he's 53, I think, 54, and he's retiring for the first time, and
Mhm.
he's kind of disillusioned by life. He's middle aged, he's divorced 3 times, and this is the time of the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and
Mhm.
he's kind of thinking, well, what do I do now? And the music is all so it imagines that he's in a nightclub in Palm Springs and that he's drinking a bottle of Jack Daniels. And as the Jack Daniels goes down, the memories start coming out. And I've written it as a screenplay, so I'd like to get that made into a small film.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's going to be what I'm working on next. That kind of combines singing and acting as well. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
So now, before we go there, anything else you'd like to tell the Kansas City listening audience?
Well, I'd love it if your wonderful audience would perhaps go on my website. They can have a listen to the music and maybe download it if they like it. And I look forward to coming and performing live in Kansas City just as soon as we can get out there.
You know, we got the 18th and Vine Jazz District. Have you? Yeah,
I've never been. No, I'd love to come. I've never.
We have a baseball museum.
Aha.
And see, Jackie Robinson played
Oh,
in L.A. before he left Kansas City. You know?
Aha.
Yeah. Yeah, they have a documentary. They have a movie about that. You know.
Yeah, they do. Who stars in it?
Chadwick, the one that passed away, the actor Chadwick. But they have some more. But the last one was, yeah,
Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah,
fantastic. Oh yeah, I'll. You made a minute. I'll rewatch it. You made give me a mental.
This is Charlie Parker. There.
Yeah.
Kel Basie played here, and actually the KOJH radio station, you know, the other one that I play with, they're in the Mutual Musicians Foundation down in the jazz.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. And we have the Gym Theater, where sometimes actually they having Phil Perry and somebody else come here. And so they have a lot of the older guys meet up there for their gigs at the Mutual Musicians Foundation, and they played. They said they started about 1, and I guess about 5 a.m. They get sleepy ahead.
5 a.m. I love it.
Will you give that website information?
Sure. So it's www.richardshelton, and then it goes .co.uk. So that's what we call .co.uk. So it's www.richardshelton.co.uk, and that'll find it.
Well, thank you, and appreciate this opportunity to get to see what you look like and get to talk to you. Because how did you meet Lydia? You know, but Lydia's told me about you, and so that's how we ended up getting your music on.
Yeah, no, Lydia's great. She was recommended to me by somebody called Amanda, who works in music promotions, and so yeah, that's. I'm thrilled that she reached out. So thanks, Lydia.
Yeah. So all right, and before we go, oh yeah, Mr. Walker likes fishing, so you fish?
To bring that up every time.
I can honestly say I've never been fishing. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Well, if you come up here to perform at the Jazz District, you're going to have to stay a little longer so Mr. Walker can show you the best fishing holes up here.
I love it. I'm in. We'll do it.
All right. Well, thank you. And you have a nice day. Thanks again.
And you too. Thanks very much.
Glad to meet you. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye now. Bye.